Hi, this is Robert Clinkenbeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners to provide you some value, to help you scale your business, to become a better father, and push yourself to higher goals personally. We hope you really enjoy these shows, and we really encourage you to share this with your friends and network to help share these messages. I'm super excited to announce a new partnership we have with Site Recon. If you're tired of measuring properties, the Site Recon platform fully automates the measurements so you can then focus on sales. Think measurements, think Site Recon. Hi everyone, this is Robert Clinkenbeard with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast, joined today by Chuck Bender. Chuck, you're obviously a great friend and we've known each other for years, so I'm really stoked that you're on the show today. So thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
So Chuck, tell me a little bit about your background, just so that our audience know who you are.
Wow, where to begin? So I would say my the things that people probably need to know about me is I am a lifelong learner, but not formally educated. So I never attended college. I'm a veteran of the United States Navy who realized when I got out of the service that the skills they taught me would never provide the lifestyle I wanted to have and offer for my family. So I had to find some solution. I've been attracted to business for 25, 30 years and built a number of companies. I've had them flame out terribly and learned a lot about that. And then I've had some relative success and married 27 years nearly, have two adult boys, and I'm getting uncomfortable with the idea of an empty nest and trying to figure out what's next for my wife and I. So there's some basics.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, I could definitely dive into any of those. But I mean, overall, you've got some tremendous successes with obviously your business. You're a very senior leader within EO. And there's obviously a pattern there around that. And that's what I wanted to dive into a little bit today in terms of, with either your business or even within EO, just some of the techniques that you use in bringing out that success in others. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the things I think, one of the areas where I've really gotten clear is the key to happiness in almost every relationship. And I say almost because there may be a relationship I haven't thought of, is clearly articulated and accepted expectations. I think the key to happiness in a marriage is making sure that I understand her expectations and I execute on them as well as I can, and she understands mine. I think the key to parenting is clearly articulating my expectations to my kids and making sure they agree to those. There has to be an agreement. I think that's true in business. I think it's true in volunteer work I do. I just find that understanding that and at the outset makes a big difference for me.
Yeah. So I'm going to dive into, because a lot of people ask me about this, with their partners that, sometimes they're on different pages. So what are some of the techniques that you use to make sure that both you and your wife are on the same page? Where you're going, what's your future look like?
I think sometimes it's just being radically curious. There's I believe, at least for me, where we get out of round is where I begin to make assumptions about things, right? Or she begins to make assumptions about things. And whenever those assumptions start to really get out of alignment, it becomes time to sit down and just say, hey, listen, what do you think is true here? And let me share kind of what I'm thinking is going on and really understand it. I think really in interpersonal relationships, there's always the subtext beyond the reaction, right? So when I'm traveling a lot and my wife says something like she's must be nice that you get to go do all these things, right? I have to hear that in a certain way, right? I could get defensive. That's a choice. I could be curious what she means by it. That's a choice. Sometimes the curiosity just makes the anger more because she doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just assuming that what she's meaning by that is that she's just missing me,
Mm-hmm.
or that she's not feeling like her life has as much stuff going on in it. So I think the area for me is not to jump to the conclusion, but try to jump to the right question. And I think that's true when I'm managing people or in leadership and my management teams. It's always trying not to jump to the conclusion. Let's try to suss out what the real problem is. I think organizations struggle when they don't ask the right questions.
No, that's good. And that brings me, to my next point is how do you translate that across then into, either EO or through your business? And, what do you do that in regular weekly meetings, monthly meetings, where you have that opportunity to start asking questions? How do you, get curious there?
So one of the things, and we talked about this in preparation for the meeting a little bit, but one of the things that we do, or what I believe in, is that if you don't have a rhythm for things that are important, it's not important, right? So I'm a big fan of rhythms, and depending on how urgent the problem is or the challenge or the issue, the tighter the rhythm space is. So we have daily rhythms with our daily huddles. We have weekly rhythms for our design desks and major priorities. We have a monthly rhythm. So these cadences, they're like a drum beat. So the way I like to describe them to people is like this. So every time your heart beats, every time it squeezes, there's a new, fresh batch of oxygenated blood flowing to the brain, right? And in between, nothing's happening, right? I find the same thing true with anything that's outside of the normal rote job that I have someone doing, or anything that's new, or any priorities that we're trying to work on, whether it's EO or in my business. The more frequent that heartbeat, at least what I know is happening is an hour before that heartbeat has to happen, that meeting happens, there's going to be a frenetic activity. There's going to be a bunch of work that gets done because nobody wants to show up with nothing, right?
Sure.
So they, you get in a meeting, you set an expectation by next Friday, you're going to have some things done. And nobody wants to be the person that showed up on Friday not having completed anything. So organizationally, either I have that, so I get something done an hour before the meeting once a week, once a day, once a month, once a quarter, twice a year, right? So depending on what focus I want to have placed on a particular issue or challenge, I just put more heartbeats into the deal. Like if I've got an urgent customer issue that's going on, like right now, if there's a customer who's having a challenge or a problem, I'll have hourly check-ins until that's resolved, right? So it's, but that check-in period and setting the expectation that I'm going to be checking in with you at this time and this time and this time, or on this day, is really what I found has been most effective for me in getting things done in a progressive manner.
That's good then. But, to play the flip side of that, if you have, employees are then complain, well, I've got too many meetings here, too many rhythms per se. How do you respond to that?
Well, so first of all, a rhythm is usually, it could be an email.
Okay.
It could be leave me a voicemail, drop me a Loom video real quick and just tell me what's going on. I don't really need to interact with those rhythms all the time. They just need to know that on such and such a time, there should be a reporting frequency of progress.
Okay.
Right.
Makes sense.
I personally don't want to be in that many meetings, but if there's a collaboration involved, then there's a meeting that's a collaboration meeting, right?
Okay.
So like in EO, we do this a lot. Well, we'll have a team that's collaborating to put on a president's meeting or a regional leadership academy or something like that. And we'll have a weekly half-hour meeting just to make sure that we're moving along, so we're hitting all of our benchmarks. Oftentimes it will start off maybe once every 2 weeks, and then as we get closer to the event and things are starting to move more quickly, it could be twice a week, right? And then we're at the event and we're ready to go. So again, those rhythms are around collaboration. Rhythms are important because it's tough to hold people's attention. And it's really tough to hold people's attention if they don't have a deadline or a specific accountability to somebody to do something. And that's kind of been that's really been my goal, is if I have an expectation of somebody, I'll have them feed me what the appropriate rhythm is. Like, what do you think is the appropriate rhythm to ensure that we're making progress? Is it weekly? Is it every 2 weeks? And if 2 weeks goes by and they've done like an hour worth of work in 2 weeks, then that rhythm's going to get doubled. It'll be once every week, so
well,
does that make sense?
But talk about, your business though, because I'm assuming this doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I go into companies and I'll, again, do what you're talking about. We're trying to get into some type of a rhythm, whether it be huddles or meetings, but usually after a month or two, there's almost like that pushback, and then the owner starts to think about, well, maybe this doesn't make any sense. They're almost beginning to side with the employees because they're getting so much pushback. So, thinking back to the days when you started to introduce this in your company, I mean, what's the challenges? How long do you think it took to really become a true rhythm?
Well, so I have a couple companies, but I'll talk in terms of my IT services company. So we do outsourced managed IT. And in that business, we're responsible for the health and well-being of our client computer networks, server infrastructure, communications, data, all of that stuff. And there's so much complexity that's involved in that if you don't have regular check-ins, you just don't, things fall off the plate, right? So there's massive accountability and risk around not having a rhythm. So where I look at it is what is the risk reward around the rhythm? And we have rhythms that are more mundane. So as an example, if you looked at our business, we break our managed services up into 4 buckets, right? So, and I like to use Covey's model for urgent, important, not important, not urgent, important, and
I like that.
But we match our business to that. So whatever drops into an important bucket has an important rhythm to it. If it's not important, there's not a rhythm, right? So we're not putting a rhythm on what time people call or what time you pick up the phone or just dumb mundane stuff that you do for your job every day. What we're putting a rhythm on is where we expect accountability. So every day we do a quick check-in to see if we need anything from another department. That's part of our huddle. Every month we have somebody who goes onto a customer site and is looking at their entire environment and doing an audit. So environments from a security standpoint can drift out of compliance. So we want to make sure that we're staying on top of it so there's no drift. Or if the drift it's like a little bit of a drift, so you can get it right back on course quickly. Absent those rhythms, those drift points get way out of alignment. So, and I'd imagine even in your business and in the landscaping business, it's the same thing, right? If you have maintenance customers and big facilities you're taking care of, if you don't get the lawns taken care of and the weeds done, man, it doesn't take long for it to look like nobody's living there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so
you're in trouble.
Rhythms around important deliverables is what we look at. And then we look at rhythms around priorities. So, if we have a big initiative that we're rolling out, like we're going to roll out a new software platform, or we're migrating a customer from total server infrastructure to a cloud infrastructure, there's a lot that goes into that process. So we're going to have a rhythmic meeting internally about progress and risk. So what are we doing to mitigate risk as we start to move through that migration? And then a regular communication rhythm with the client, because the key to happiness is expectations being set and accepted, right?
Yeah.
So that's rhythms for me are how we keep our promises.
That's great. So I'm going to jump into now, looking at what those priorities are, because I fear different people trying to do them different ways. A lot of people will say, well, it should come from the owner, and that's what he or she should expect. But I also hear a lot of people say, well, there should be buy-in from the management team so that they can then take ownership and run with them. How do you typically work with when you're doing either your annual goals or your quarterly priorities? What's your typical format for doing that?
So for us, it's really identifying the problems where we are right now. We do a SWOT analysis, and look at it. But I think again, I go back to where we started. Asking the right questions helps point the brain in the right problem to solve. So when we're identifying priorities, we're either identifying an opportunity that we want to chase hard, or something that we're failing at, and it's become a priority. We have to do better at this particular thing, whatever that is, whether it's our project management isn't being done as well as we'd like, or we've had some customer experience stuff that came back and it didn't sound as good as we thought it should sound against our core values, right? So our core values become our decision-making matrix for everything. So part of the way we explore this, and interesting, I got a lot of this from EO really, was let's ask ourselves how are we doing on our core values? Like, our number one core value is building trusted relationship. It is an action. It is not, we want trusted relationships. No, it's incumbent upon us to build those relationships. How are we doing? How are we not doing? Right? Deliver exceptional results. How are we doing? How are we not doing? Right? Being the answer. Are we actually trying to be helpful? Or are we just throwing up roadblocks, right? How are we helping? Are we doing that for our customers? Where are we doing that, and where are we not? So that helps to, I think oftentimes we're all problem solving computers. All right. And as leadership, I feel like it's our responsibility to ask the right question to suss out the right problem to solve. Mm-hmm. If we need to grow by 20% and our current business units aren't going to be able to do that for some constraint, what other opportunities are there that we can go into? There's the book, Who Moved My Cheese, right? I don't know if you've read that.
Yeah, no, great book. Right? Great book.
It's this big. And I learned when my business failed, my first EO qualifying business failed, that book landed for me. I had read it while that business was successful, and all I could hear was, am I still stuck on this piece of cheese that's dying and I don't have any other cheese in my future, right? It was such a simple concept, but inside of our businesses, that's what we need to be doing. Inside of our businesses, we need to be always looking for the new opportunity, and we need to be creating a bulwark for our current business. Like, what is working? How do we do more of that? How do we safeguard it so we're delivering the highest value to our customers? And then how do we look for other ways to add value? Business is really pretty simple, and there's a culture out there right now that wants to denigrate successful people. But one of the things I always have to point back at them is the reason that people are successful is because they're adding value to more people than you are. It's really that simple. Bill Gates adds value to billions of people, literally. Amazon, billions of people. Chuck Bender, thousands of people, right? It's a very different.
So big number, though.
Yeah, but it's a very different thing, right? So how much success your business is going to have, and how you're able to focus is by creating the opportunity to add the most amount of value to the most amount of people. And then making life choices based on your personal values. One of my favorite sayings is I was asked this question a long time ago. Would you rather be wealthy or king? And for me, it was king, hands down. I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do. I just wanted to have enough financial resources to do what I want when I wanted without having to check in with anybody. Mm-hmm. Right? I could be very wealthy by going out and raising money and getting people and building a business plan and working 80 hours a week for nonstop for the foreseeable future. And I could attain a certain measure of wealth, right? But what's wealthy for me is time. Time is more valuable to me than money, right? So that's a choice. That's a choice we're all making. So for me, these rhythms help me to buy back my time. For me, these rhythms help me to spend more time raising my kids. I never missed a single athletic event ever. It helped that my kids weren't particularly athletic, but I didn't miss any band things either. The point is that there's life is about choices. And for me, I wanted to tailor a business that actually allowed me to make the choices that I wanted for my life going forward. And having rhythms and execution methodologies and managing to outcomes instead of details was how I was able to do it. Put the right person in a room, give them an outcome that they're responsible for, get out of the way, and have a regular check-in to make sure that they're delivering. And then I get lots of time back.
No,
and
that's great.
That's how I can even do the EO stuff.
So there's a lot of companies out there that are still trying to, make that transition, that the owner's still working it, in the business, dealing with the minutia, and, they hear this and they think, oh, I'd love to get to that point. So what would be the 2 or 3 things you would say to them, and how do you start that process and being able to transition out to start working on the business, to start to build those rhythms, to start to work on those priorities, and just look at the business from a different perspective?
Well, I mean, I can point to a couple things. E-Myth is a great book to read. If you haven't read it, read it, by Michael Gerber. But I think Dan Sullivan's Who Not How is another great one. For me, it really began with realizing that I'm not very good at a lot of things. All right. And there are a lot of people who would be way better at it, at those things, way more excited to do those things. And they were relatively inexpensive to have people do, right? So for me, the part is I never wanted to be the person who got paid to do work. All right. So that's why I could never be a doctor or a lawyer. They're just highly paid hourly laborers.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah.
Right. They're highly paid, but they don't get paid if they don't work. And the benefit of owning a business is you're able to leverage other people's time, other people's energy, and other people's money, whether it's through banks, financing, or whatever financing tools you have. So the leverage in that is getting more people, spreading the labor, getting more people's energy focused on the right problems. And then for me to be able to sit back and say, okay, what is the problem of the future? What's future Chuck need to be dealing with right now? Because I'm not sucked into the operational details of what's going on in my business every single day.
Yeah.
So it's a classic visionary role in that sense. But I really look at I really think that entrepreneurs need to disconnect their ego from their work ethic in terms of what they're doing. So am I the best baker in the planet, or am I the best business builder in the planet?
Right.
If you want to be the best baker, you know what, that's an amazing thing to do. And there is a market for celebrity bakers who get known as being the best and can charge a slight premium on their ability to bake. Right. But if you want to have freedom, you can't be the person getting up at 3 o'clock every morning and making the dough and putting the bun in the oven, so to speak, right?
Well, that's especially true since there's so many options now with hiring fractional people. You don't necessarily have to hire somebody full time.
Yeah.
If they're a financial expert, a CFO, you don't have to, go out and pay 100,000. You could bring somebody in as a fractional basis and bring in expertise. So there's so many options now available.
Well, what's your hourly rate, right?
Yeah.
Think about your hourly rate, and think about if you were paying someone else your hourly rate to take the garbage out, paying someone else your hourly rate to do the books, paying something your hourly rate to drive to the storage and pick something up and bring it back. I mean, entrepreneurs waste a lot of time doing just stuff because they have excess capacity, but they're not valuing their time for their money. If they would actually block their time for something that was strategic and focused on that, what they're actually getting paid for that, and let other people who will be happy to do those things for 15, 20, 25, 30, $50 an hour, your values, you should be doing, if you're getting paid 150, 200, 300, whatever thousand a year you're getting paid, you should be doing $200,000-$300,000 work. Yeah, and that is not with your hands, that is with your brains.
That's true. Yeah, I talk about that with my clients, about trying to just block off what I call QTBs, quality time blocks. Yeah. And that should be working on, as you say, those higher level projects that's going to take the business to the next level.
Yeah.
So Chuck, we're going to wrap up here, but really appreciate your time today. If people want to get hold of you just to either learn more about you, your business, and some of the techniques you use, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably, let's see, I would say you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Charles Bender. You can find me by email at charles.bender@attentus.tech. So it's ATTENTUS.tech. I mean, if you're an EO member, I'm 20 years in the organization. You can find me in the EO network. It's under the old category. I'm there, but no, I'm really open to helping anybody. I think we're all in this together, and as entrepreneurs, we have an opportunity to really make the world a better place for not only our families and ourselves, but for our employees and their families. And the risk that you're taking to be in business is really providing opportunities that didn't exist before. There isn't a finite pie size. You're growing it, and I really applaud those who really try to do that. So
cool, awesome. Well, great words of wisdom, Chuck. So again, thank you for your time today. Really enjoyed this. I know the audience are going to love this. So appreciate it again. I'm sure we'll get you back on in the future.
Hey, I look forward to it. Thanks
cool.
a lot, Robert.
Okay, thank you. Okay, right. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great takeaways for your business or your personal life. This is Robert Clinkybeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us in our future journey. 2 quick things before you go, listeners. Check out our website, commerciallandscapers.com. You can subscribe, you can share with your friends, but more importantly, check out our new sponsor, Site Recon. It's going to make your sales process, your estimating way easier, so you can spend more time in your proposals. Thanks everyone. Cheers.